Thank you, Deputy Speaker. In its fourth year of government, a distracted Anthony Albanese has failed to deliver for Indigenous Australians. Labor is dodging accountability when it comes to practical support for Indigenous Australians. And for the first time in 17 years, Labor's deliberately evading the scrutiny of a standalone Senate estimates hearing for cross-portfolio Indigenous matters. Aided and abetted by the Greens, the decision to cancel the cross-portfolio sittings for both Indigenous matters and Murray-Darling plan matters speaks to the hubris that Labor now displays. It's actively undermined transparency and accountability in the areas where Australians deserve the highest standards of both. The $300 million Better, Safer Future for Central Australia plan has made Central Australia neither better nor safer. The Albanese government allowed alcohol restrictions to lapse in the Northern Territory in 2023, unleashing havoc on Central Australia and requiring millions in expenditure to respond to it. Labor fuelled access to alcohol, drugs and gambling through the removal of the cashless debit card in 2022. The Office of the Registrar of Indigenous Corporations database reveals, as at 4 October, 1,162 Indigenous organisations, many of which receive Commonwealth funding, have failed to fulfil their reporting requirements for the 2023-24 financial year. Despite these concerns, the Registrar has downplayed the issue. The government has failed to consistently enforce mandatory minimum requirements under the Indigenous procurement policy for government contracts. According to the Australian National Audit Office, only 1 in 5 government contracts is monitored for compliance with the Indigenous procurement policy, and only a quarter of those are compliant. Australians have been hit with a $730,000 bill for the First Nations ambassadors' travel expenses across just 2 years. The Prime Minister is spending millions of dollars of taxpayer money, and what does he have to show for it? Zero accountability, zero outcomes and zero improvement for the lives of Indigenous Australians. Will the Albanese government commit to the highest standards for funding organisations which deliver the services Indigenous Australians need? Will the Albanese government commit to restoring the Senate estimates hearing for cross-portfolio Indigenous matters for the remainder of this term? Turning up at Garma Festival in East Arnhem Land in August, the PM even used his speaking notes from the year before on economic empowerment and dodged taking any questions from the press before jetting back out. Let me be clear. We value the Indigenous-led business sector, which contributed more than $16 billion to the national economy in 2022. However, on economic empowerment, the Prime Minister is bringing together service providers and advocates rather than business and enterprise. As the CEO of the NT Indigenous Business Network wrote in an opinion piece last week, let's be clear, on what planet do we think black economic development can happen? The Coalition will hold the government to account on its economic empowerment plan, led by our Shadow Minister for Indigenous Australians, Senator Karen Little. Senator Little, with her own background working in and supporting Indigenous businesses, will be shining a spotlight on the government actions, ensuring economic empowerment is grounded in business and growth, creating real jobs and devoid of symbolism. The evidence in the July 2025 Closing the Gap data report paints a stark picture of no meaningful change. 4 targets already going backwards continue to worsen: adult incarceration, children commencing school developmentally on track, children in out-of-home care and suicide. Of the 19 targets, just 4 are on track, 1 less than last year. Compared to the previous coalition government, youth detention is up 11%, suicide is up 9.4%, adult incarceration is up 3.5%, preschool attendance is down 2.6%, and 1.2% fewer children are commencing school developmentally on track. Will the Albanese government commit to focusing on tangible outcomes for Indigenous Australians so that together we can close the gap on Indigenous disadvantage?